Welcome to Research Debrief, the podcast that bridges the gap between the fitness industry and the latest science. Luke, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Rachel. Excited to be with you.
Same. All right, well, what is the topic of discussion for today?
Yeah, normally the papers we look at are brand new. So it's come out in the last couple of weeks. It's come out in the last, maybe 2 months. This paper is a couple years old, but I just think it's important enough that we touch on it based on what's popular in all of our clubs right now, what we're hearing on podcasts, what we're seeing on social media. The paper is published in a high impact factor journal. The journal is Applied Physiology, Nutrition, and Metabolism. The title of this paper is Reduced Exertion High Intensity Interval Training. So that's an acronym, REHIT, a feasible approach for improving health and fitness. Now, the researchers here are asking a really important question. It's a question we should always ask in exercise, and I think we fail to ask it. What's the least amount of exercise that we can possibly do that's going to deliver the results that we want? And of course, that's how we think about medicine. When we study pharmacology, we always prescribe the minimal effective dose. So instead of saying, well, you're going to need some chemotherapy, well, how much? Just take as much as you want, or just make sure your bases are covered. Let's take a whole bunch of it. We say, what's the least amount of this medication that's going to elicit the physiological adaptation that we're looking for? Well, of course, we should do the same thing with exercise. I think historically we haven't done this because the people that teach us about exercise, the people that are promoting exercise, are largely people who liked exercise. And if you liked exercise, you generally tell other people you should exercise more. So we need some research that says, well, no, we can't just tell people to exercise more. We have to say, if you're going to do the least amount possible, what is going to deliver, or what is the least amount possible? It's going to deliver all of the benefits that we want. Now, that's a different question than, hey, if I just did a little bit, what kind of benefit would I get? That's not what we're addressing here. That's not what these researchers addressed. They said, what's the least amount that you could do that's going to still deliver the benefits that you want? So that's our discussion. The topic is cardio. We're talking about aerobic exercise. We should be doing aerobic exercise. How much should we be doing? How little can we get away with? So that's the focus of this paper. It's an important topic because what's the number one barrier to exercise in most of the developed world? It's time. It's perceived lack of time. So let's understand how we could do it in a brief manner. What they recommend, and I'm going to share a couple of their key concepts. They're focused on improving health and fitness. So this is not getting ready to win a marathon, right? A marathon's a sport that's going to involve specific preparation. So they're not saying if you want to win a marathon or compete effectively in the Tour de France, this is what you should be doing. They're saying, well, if you want the health protective benefits of exercise that we're all really chasing, what should you be doing? This is maybe what your primary care physician would recommend. And I'll cut right to their exact recommendations. They said pick any type of stationary cardio that you're into. So let's just picture you're on an exercise bike. They said you should warm up for 5 to maybe 8 minutes of just kind of easy pedaling. And then you should do an all-out sprint for 20 seconds. This means you're pedaling as hard as you can for 20 seconds. Then you're recovering for 3 minutes, maybe 2 minutes, where you're just pedaling very, very slowly. And then you do another all-out 20-second sprint on the bike. You cool down for maybe 2 to 3 minutes after that, and you are completely done. Now, the math on that is we're looking at maybe 10 minutes in total exercise duration. And then they recommend doing this 2 to 3 times per week. So I'm just going to read right from the paper. Together, this research has led to the development of protocols involving minimal doses of interval training, regularly performing, so they're saying 2 to 3 times a week, just 20 up to 30 seconds, all-out sprints in a 10-minute training session has been shown to elicit beneficial metabolic and cardiovascular adaptations. Now, their terminology for this was reduced exertion, High intensity interval training, I think that's a silly name because the exertion is really high. It's not reduced exertion, it's reduced time.
Yeah.
So you are, when you're doing this 20-second or 30-second interval, you are pedaling incredibly hard. I mean, you're going absolutely all out, where a lot of our other approaches to interval training, we've worked hard during that interval, but we don't need to work this hard. In this paper, with this approach, we're saying you really, really have to work hard. You have to go all out for that 20 to 30 seconds. That's why I'm suggesting maybe we do it on a bike. Their research would say you could do it on a treadmill, you could do it running outside, you could do it on an elliptical machine, you could do it on any stationary cardio that you're into. A rower would be wonderful. I think a bike is the most plausible because maybe doing a 20-second all-out sprint on a treadmill, you maybe have a risk of injury. You might fall off the back of that treadmill. I still think someone that's really experienced or comfortable with running on a treadmill could do this on a treadmill. I pick bike because I think it's so universal. And of course, we know from a cardiovascular adaptation standpoint, from a metabolic adaptation standpoint, it doesn't matter what the mode of cardio is. So I would generally defer and say, whatever you're comfortable with, whatever you enjoy doing, whatever you have access to. And we stated rower, bike, elliptical. We're going to see all of these in most health clubs.
Awesome. Wow. Yeah, when you were talking about the treadmill risk, I was like, yeah, I would fly right off that thing if I was going as fast as possible. But that's just me. I think the other thing I really like about this, though, is the messaging of minimal effective dose exercise. I think that's a great kind of way to frame this concept and the research. So I guess any other take homes for clubs on how they should be maybe talking about this with their members?
Yeah, first of all, I think we can educate that you just don't need massive volumes of cardio. You can come in and be really focused and work at a high level of intensity for a short period of time and receive these benefits. So we can educate around that. And then we can think about how do we structure this into all of our offerings, into our one-on-one training, into our team training, into our small group training, into our potentially large group training. How do we start integrating some of this? I mean, I just think forever, when I think of group exercise, I think of I'm in a 45-minute class. I'm in a 1 hour long class. Does it have to be that way? I mean, could there be an offering that's 10 minutes or maybe from a scheduling standpoint to make it easier, it's 15 minutes long? And then, of course, we educate around that and say, here's why we're doing 15 minutes. This is not some trade-off. This is a wonderful way to maximize your VO2 max, so many of the health protective benefits we're getting from exercise. So I think that club operators can have creativity in how they educate around this and how they decide to actually apply it in their clubs.
Wonderful.